Good evening and welcome to Between the Lanes, episode number 144. I'm Ron.
I'm Shane.
We're here to talk slot cars. Again, welcome to Between the Lanes, episode. I'm just going to have to deal with this, I think, because it's not going to move. Between the Lanes, episode number 144. We're off to a great start here. You can find us on YouTube. Slot Racers, the channel. We have 144 episodes up, along with some special article or special episodes. That's not going to move. Special episodes and some how-to videos. Find us on Facebook. Between the Lanes is the page. Race results. So there really was no races last weekend that I know of or I seen any reports, but John Teflo sent us in some race results from Slot Car Raceway LLC, Houston, Texas. That's P.A. Watson's Raceway. That's the home of the 2020 NASRA Nationals for wing cars. And they had a scale race on May 17th. And he sent me some results. So in the stock car class, John Teflos was the winner, a.k.a. JT. Stefan was second. Patrick was third. LMP, it was the same podium. JT was the winner. Stefan was second. Patrick was third. And then in GTP, JT was the winner. Jason was second, and George was third. So, Sunday.
Sunday.
I beat Shane to it. Anyway, so this Sunday.
You didn't chew me up here.
This Sunday, May 30th, is the Mid-South race at the Slot Car Track Concord. Shane will be there. He'll have a full race report for us next week. And for June, I don't have anything down for June 6th. June 13th, we've got the Archdale Enduro down at Archdale Raceway, North Carolina. We got the Real Speed Summer Series race number 2 at Real Speed in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And then there's the Corona 400 hard body race at Bullitt Speedway down around Louisville, Kentucky. And the weekend of June 20th, we have Mad Fast at the Slot Car Track Concord. And that's all I have for June races. And if anything else pops up, then we'll let you know. So earlier today, now this thing is moving around on me again. There we go. So earlier today, the Flexi National Racing Series, FNRS, announced their 2020 National Championship races, which will be held October 3rd and 4th at Pit Pass Raceway and Dragway, or Drag Strip. I forget the whole name. Pit Pass Raceway and Drag Strip, I think is what it is. Newport, Tennessee. Be 2-day event, 4 classes. Saturday schedule will be GTP on the King, 4-inch stock car on the oval. The Sunday schedule will be LMP on the King and 4.5-inch stock car on the oval. LMP and GTP will use handout Phoenix motors, 13.2 spec pinions, along with handout tires. And the spec body for that class is the out-of-sight B3 Bentley. Bodies won't be mailed out like the Retropalooza type race or Flexipalooza type race, excuse me. Just get your own bodies and paint them up and go from there. On the 4-inch stock car on the oval, it'll be the Ralph Thorne Titan COT body. Sunday on the LMP King Track race, it'll be the RTR Orca body. And 4.5 on the oval that day, we'll use the out-of-sight Taurus 4.5-inch body, non-COT. All the rules, part numbers, and stuff like that is up at the Flexi National Racing Series page on Facebook. Entry fee for each class is $40, and that includes your one motor, pair of tires, and your entry fee. And you can use, on the King Track, you can use your tires in both classes probably.
Probably the same tire, wouldn't it?
Yep, same motor. And then on the oval track, it'll probably be a different tire, and it'll be Pro Slot FKs over there for those 2 classes. So there we have it. New products. Of course, my little control bars blocking part of this. But excuse me, yesterday, Mazzetti Racing, a few weeks back, he kind of put a teaser after he had some new chassis coming, and most guys were thinking they were new FlexiCard chassis, but they weren't, and they aren't. And they're all spring steel laser cut chassis. And yesterday he put up the Patriot Vector Easy Build No Bar Drag Chassis Kit. It will retail for $39.50. It'll be nickel plated, snap together construction. Claims it won't need any acid flux to put it together. You can just use paste flux and wash it up real good, and it'll look like it's brand new. And then also yesterday, he showed a picture of the Patriot Sniper Womp Womp alternative chassis. Again, nickel plated, snap together construction, retail price of $33.33. These should be available very soon at, I guess, ERI Distributing and probably REH at this point. And I think the Womp chassis is pretty cool.
Yeah, I've been checking it out.
I think I think between this chassis and like the Mid-America Hammer chassis, I think it puts a lot of excitement in Womp racing, because now you can buy a chassis that's available and it's easy to build, and the best part is it's like indestructible. I think.
Yeah, I mean, you just look at this Womp chassis, and it's just, I don't know, it just looks neat.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah,
you know me, I'm not really a Womp racer, but then I seen this, and I was just like, I kind of want one of these things just because of how cool it looks.
Yep, I'm gonna have to have one.
I was just like, hey,
And then hope at some point we can get a race together somewhere with these things.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm looking at a picture of it now, and it's just, he's got the gear guard around the back, and it's just
right. Yep.
Everyone that I've talked to has asked me, and I've tried to figure it out, but it's like, it almost looks like a stacker. Like, is the top piece soldered? Let's see if I can say this without
the top piece
lisping or stuttering. Is there anything floating?
Well,
does it have floating pans?
Okay, so the top piece, which you would, as far as I can tell by looking at the pictures, that's kind of like a pan. Okay, so I think the body actually pins to that top pan, if you want to call it that. And
right.
I don't know how much movement it has. I don't think it's solid. It's probably more like a rattler. It just kind of rattles a little bit.
It all looks like it ties into the guide. So I guess the guide would have some movement also.
That I don't know for sure on that one. Again, until I see one build one, I won't know. But I don't know. I don't know that the guide moves, but I'm pretty sure that top pan probably rattles a little bit. So, and then again, somebody made a comment about this chassis be too tricked to race against other Womp chassis. Well, yeah, maybe, but you could solder that thing up solid. I mean, you could say in your local rules or whatever, like, you can run this car, but you have to solder that solid so there's no movement. So it's like a regular Womp type chassis with no movement. So that's kind of a funny thing, because back when, I never raced a Womp with pin tubes in it. Now, you could put pin tubes in it. I've raced FCR cars with pin tubes in them, because like FCR cars, either was supposed to either use body clips or use the Velcro.
Right.
And I never, but we did run, we had like a modified FCR class where you could run pin tubes and they could float and stuff. So I've run pin tubes and floating pin tubes in a FCR car, but I've never run pin tubes at all in a Womp car. Never solid, never floating. But
you always just run like the clips.
Yeah, because I mean, when we raced that Womp race last July, that was probably the first Womp race I had raced in probably 25 years or something. Like,
yeah, first like big race like that I've ever raced with Womps.
I mean, when, like, again, okay, when I started racing, WOMPS was the big class because they were $10 cars ready to run. Okay. And that's what everybody, walked in the raceway and bought. And that's what they promoted was the WOMP cars because if you wanted to race the next class up, it was the old Parma sliding plumber cars with Group 12 motors. Those were like $30 or $35 cars. So there was a big price difference, and, 1981, 82, $35 was a lot of money. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, people gravitated towards WOMPs and we had a lot of fun racing them and stuff. And, we had to race them like stock, we weren't allowed to modify them in any way, shape or form. And I mean, we couldn't even run thumpers, it was all steel WOMP chassis, no brass chassis. It was, so the first year or two I raced WOMPs, it was like, we actually called the class stock, and you raced them stock. And then as other raceways opened and the raceway that I started at closed, then more places were allowing WOMPs, and then they were started to allow the brass WOMP chassis. So we had a little choice. And, but it was back to the same deal. Like one track, was definitely like a thumper track. And then the next track would be a WOMP track. And then you had to decide whether you were going to run brass or steel. And, I raced WOMPs like every week from December of 81 to like 1984, 85 when we started racing flexi cars. Once we started racing flexi cars, WOMPs was like off the map. I mean, WOMPs just became the unwanted stepchild because at that time you could pay like, I don't know, $6 or $7 more and get a flexi car, which was a way better car.
Right.
So the world went from WOMPs to flexi cars, and even when I worked at Parma, I mean, we didn't sell a whole lot of WOMPs. WOMPs just were not that popular. I mean,
I was trying to think like maybe the last 3 or 4 years that my actual local track was open here, they started introducing WOMPs, and they were, I guess, champion thumpers.
Right. Yep. Because, in all my years of traveling, you go to raceways and there'd be no WOMPs, and then you go into raceways, and some raceways would, they always had a couple in the showcase because it was like the cheap car to sell to somebody. But nobody raced them. Like no one really had in my travels, like any kind of weekly WOMP. It was all flexi cars. And, but I mean, there were still places here and there that might have an annual WOMP race, or, maybe they raced them once a month. I mean, Tri-State USRA series, we raced WOMPs. They raced WOMPs in that series probably for about 4 or 5 years, and then they did away with them and went to the flexi car class. And they became unpopular. And even in Tri-State, you were allowed to brace the WOMPs and stuff, but that really didn't. You got a $10 card, you got to brace. You're allowed to brace, but then you can race the $17 car, and you don't have to brace nothing type deal. And bracing wasn't allowed anyway. So, but they didn't bend as like the WOMPs did. So, it was just one of those deals. Because I remember when, like 82, 83, when Parma went from the Johnson motor to the other Hong Kong motor, they had a lot of problems with the armatures and stuff. And that's a whole nother story for another night. But Mura then started making the Challenger arm. That was like the 16D replacement arm. So in Tri-State, to try and keep the class going, because guys were quitting racing the class because of the problem with the motors. And, we allowed the Challenger motors to be used as a replacement armature. That kept the class on life support for another maybe year.
Right.
But then, Flexis was it. So, it's like when people say, well, okay, Ron, what's WOMP racing to you? Okay, so like, I'm old school. To me, WOMP racing is, a Parma WOMP chassis, steel or brass, or a thumper chassis, to me with a 16D motor in it, because that's when WOMPs were huge, that's what we ran in them. was a 16D world. I mean, there were no mini motors and stuff like that. But, you know, as time moves on, things change, and, you know, nothing against what anybody out there is doing rule wise. But I think when you have a class currently that you can't even get, like, you know, you got chassis that are legal, but you can't even buy new ones unless you find old stock.
Right.
That tends to be a problem with trying to grow something, because, you know, there are, you know, like there's a thumper chassis, you know, there's the Riggin chassis, which is it's a competitive WOMP chassis, and then now you have like the H&R came out with the WOMP chassis not too long ago. Like, forgive me, I can't think of the name of that thing, and but that's available, you know. And then you've got like the LJR brass chassis, which I think is available. It takes the square oil lights and stuff, but, you know, you're allowing, like, out of the 5 chassis in some of the classes, you're allowing 2 chassis that you can't even, they're not even being produced. They're not even in production. So
Right.
then you see guys paying like,
old stock.
Yeah. Well, then you see guys paying like $50 for these things. And it's like, I mean, I understand it's the rules, and, you know, if that's the chassis to have and you want to have it, you got to pay that money. But it doesn't help raceways grow a class when they can't get those items. Like, they can't sell them. So if they sell the other chassis that may not be as competitive as the 2 you can't get, then that doesn't really work. So, and then I kind of look at it too as if you're spending, you know, $16 on these new chassis that you can get, but they bend every time you hit the wall. Well, for 2 of those chassis, you can have like this spring steel chassis that is indestructible. And it'll give you just as much fun, if not more fun, with a lot less frustration, and make it more user-friendly for everyone involved. You know?
Right.
So,
and you buy it and it's easy to set up and it gets around good, then it may keep the interest versus the other
Right.
chassis take a little more tuning and more experience.
Right.
And it's just like, yeah, this is not happening.
I mean, raceways could, you know, they could buy kits, sell kits for $33.33, and they could sell a chassis that's already soldered together for someone who's new and doesn't know how. Like, you know, here's the chassis. You
Right.
put these parts on there, but, you know, you could, you know, the track owner could solder them together and charge an extra $10 or $15.
Right.
You know, it's like it's an indestructible car. So that's just kind of my take on it. But I mean, or my thoughts. It was my opinion. I'm not trying to change anything. It's just to me, it's just common sense. I mean, if you want to grow something, the way you can grow it is if you have readily available common parts.
Right. Kind of like if you were asked me, hey, would you start racing WOMPS if the Mazzetti chassis was to be legal? I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It just.
Definitely.
You know, like I said, I want one, not necessarily saying I'm going to jump out there and start traveling or racing a WOMP series. I just want it just because it looks neat.
Right. Right.
You know, I think I've seen someone post that it looks like a 332nd Euro Sport from WOMP cars. I was like, yeah, I kind of see that. I mean, it does. It just looks kind of cool.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's what the industry needs, is like better, stronger. I mean, the flexi problem's kind of been solved over many years. I mean, the flexi cars are pretty tough nowadays. I mean, I remember going. This is going back probably almost 20 years ago. Like, I actually tested like GT12 chassis in a flexi car race. Okay, like, they weren't any better. They didn't handle any better. They didn't go any faster, but they didn't bend like the other cars at the time did.
Right.
But it just it never pushed it. Never. You know, it was just one of those things. Like, why don't we run these cars? Allow these cars in this class, and be, you know, like if you walked in a raceway and you were a new guy, and you spent I guess $20 for a chassis, and it's going to bend when you hit the wall.
Right.
But, you know, here's a chassis that's $40 to $50, and it's not going to bend or break when you hit the wall. That's more suited for new people. So.
Or as they say in WOMP terms, high bank it.
Yes. high bank it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. So, I mean, there's lots of ways to look at it, but to me, it's not very fun to run a car that hit the wall and you got to straighten it out,
right,
or carry pliers in your pocket. I mean, I know some guys think that's the fun of it, but it's not fun to the masses. So I think if you want to grow it, you got to grow it with better, stronger chassis.
Right.
And go from there, see what happens. But yeah.
Right. That's just like some other places, their rules. I just read them. It's just like, all right.
Right.
You know, like, okay.
So yeah, so I, my opinion, but that's just the way I kind of think about it at times. I think you just if you sell somebody a better product,
right,
it lasts longer. And like I said, most of the newer Flexi chassis, they're a lot stronger than they ever were. So
yeah, I was trying to think when was the last time I destroyed a Flexi car. I mean, we were just laughing this past weekend because we did practice/tire testing and never ran on the oval at Randy's, and we were just talking about the car. I launched it because the oval was flat.
Right.
And I just had a brain fart and I never listed.
Bam.
You know? And it was just funny because thing just was turning in slow motion, and Bobby's over there laughing like crazy. I'm like, it was funny, but it wasn't that funny. He's like, dude, that thing was like in slow motion.
Right.
I was like, yeah. And I picked it up, and he's like, is it bad? And I was, nah. I straightened the braid out, knocked the dust off the tires, and went back cutting laps.
Right.
You know?
Yep. So that's all I got for this.
Interesting to see where the WOMPS go with this new chassis, and who knows what else it may bring.
Right. Well, and then I mean, there's other. I mean, like RGO has a brass chassis kit you kind of solder together. It's got the like retro motor bracket in the back of it.
And the thing is, I'm not really up to date on what's out there as far as WOMPS because I don't.
Right. Well, like AMSRA, I mean, AMSRA, AWRA, they have a class for those types of chassis. Right. But for some reason, I don't know, again, then they're, some of these chassis are already legal, but yet those classes just don't get promoted for whatever reason.
Right.
And maybe if they were started to be promoted better, you might get better participation. Right. So, don't know. I mean, if you have a raceway, I mean, how many classes can you promote and hope to build, get 10 or 12 guys to come in and race all the different classes every week?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So maybe if some people rethink a few things and get things going, I'd see some growth in some of this stuff.
Promotion sometimes is key. Promotion sometimes is all it takes. Take something that was once nothing and turn it into something.
Well, maybe we can talk Ernie into doing Wampapalooza.
Hey, there you go.
If you're listening, Ernie, let's do Wampapalooza with the new car.
Hey, as silly as it sounds right now, I would probably do it.
I'd probably do it too. If we're gonna run those cars and stuff, I think it'd be awesome.
Yeah, same thing. Hand out motor, hand out tires.
Yep.
Find someone to do a handout body.
Yep. So it could be done.
There you go.
Wampapalooza.
Question would be, where would it be done at?
Good question.
Yeah.
Well, it's like the decision has to be made everywhere.
Tune in next week on Between the Lanes.
Might be an announcement for Wampapalooza. Yeah, you never know. You never know.
Or as I always call it, Wampamania.
Yep, Wampamania.
So.
All right. So you got a secret magic quiet word for the show this week?
Wampamania.
I knew it was going to be that.
Yeah, I was just thinking of that. There you go.
When you were so high on your Wampamania, I thought, yeah, that's what it's going to be. So you can type Wampamania or just Wampa.
Yeah, don't ask me how to spell it.
We'll know what you mean.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Until next week, have a safe weekend. If you're going racing, have fun. Be careful. And we will see you next week on Between the Lanes, episode number 145.